Welcome back! I have finally arrived at the topic which originally gave me the idea to start my own channel. It will actually be a mini-series detailing the journey and eventual defeat of Hungarian Second Army, which took place between April 1942 and February 1943. In this first video, I'll explain why and how Second Army was formed. I will then follow up with their departure and arrival. Rapid Corps, that had participated in Operation Barbarossa, was transported back to Hungary by early January 1942. Almost immediately, Generalfeldmarschall Wilhelm Keitel, Chief of Staff of the OKW, arrived in Budapest, demanding greater participation in the war, something that the Germans had originally not anticipated or requested. Now the situation was more serious. The German military was not in a position to launch a massive offensive on all parts of the Eastern Front, so they would focus on the southern sector with the overall objective of capturing Stalingrad, Astrakhan, and the Caucasus. While Romania would increase the number of its divisions in Russia to 26, they demanded that Hungary also send more troops, as they feared a Hungarian invasion in Transylvania. Because of this, Keitel asked for 15 brigades, Rapid Corps, the 1st Mountain Brigade, along with 7 security brigades, although 5 brigades were already in Ukraine for occupation duties. Obviously, this was unacceptable for the Hungarian government that wanted to focus on the Romanian threat, and also knew that some of these formations existed only on paper anyway. Expansion and reorganization of the armed forces was ongoing. All brigades were renamed light divisions, while 7 bicycle battalions were converted to tank battalions to be equipped with Toldi light and Turan medium tanks. 6 of these would make up the basis for the 2 armored divisions, while the 7th would join a new cavalry division. Later, in October 1942, Rapid Corps was disbanded. Its motorized units joined 1st Armored Corps, but only Toldi tanks were available. Production of the Turan medium tanks suffered delays. This plan was interrupted by the new German demand, so the 2 armored divisions were not yet born. Negotiations with Keitel and Foreign Minister Ribbentrop concluded with a compromise. Hungary would send 3 army corps with 9 light divisions to the front, along with an armored division that was to be equipped with German tanks. Ribbentrop indicated that the Soviets were weak, so the army would most likely perform occupation duties. No heavy resistance was expected, which gave false hopes to the Hungarian leadership, although it tried to properly equip this new Second Army using 2/3 of the available equipment. Selected units were 3rd Corps from Szombathely, 4th Corps from Pécs, and 7th Corps from Miskolc, but these army corps could only bring 2 of their light divisions with them. They would get the 3rd from a different corps to even out the burden. The 1st Field Armored Division was set up with 1 tank and 1 motorized regiment. The tanks, Skoda-made Panzer 38Ts and Panzer Mark IVs, came from Germany, while their crews came from the existing tank battalions that lacked actual tanks. According to official directives, these army corps could use 20% of the enlisted men currently available in the country. They could mobilize half of their reservists, but the rest had to come from replacements, aged between 35 and 40, who were obviously not used to military life and had only an 8-week training. A 5 to 6 week refreshment course was ordered for the troops, especially for the ethnic minorities who had previously served in a different army. They constituted roughly 15% of personnel, mostly in non-combat roles, but Jewish labor companies were also assembled, officially to build fortifications and help with other duties that required physical labor, but at the front, their fate depended largely on the attitude of their company commanders and the guards. Some of them were violent towards the laborers, while others followed regulation more closely. Altogether, 207,000 men were sent to the Eastern Front. Of these, 17,000 were Jewish laborers, who received only a cap and basic tools. Although this was not required, A small air group was also included, but its planes were delivered with significant delays. Even by September, the originally planned numbers could not be reached. Still, Second Army could rely on 22 Heya fighters, 14 Caproni CA-135 bombers, 12 Heinkel HE-46 short-range, and 4 HE-111 long-range reconnaissance planes, along with 3 Junkers Ju-86 bombers that were used as transport planes. Among the fighter pilots was István Horthy, the regent's eldest son. While the light divisions did not include the better trained and younger generations, the government tried to give them more weapons to increase their firepower in case they had to fight against regular Red Army units. Each light division had 2 infantry regiments, 1 artillery regiment, with 80, 100, 105 and 150 mm guns, all horse-drawn, along with 6 40 mm anti-aircraft guns, a cavalry company and other support units. They could rely on the Corps' own artillery battalion, which had 16 150 mm guns, half of which were motorized. Each corps also had a bicycle battalion, motorized AA guns, and the usual support and supply units. Supply columns at the corps level were motorized. At divisional level, they were partially motorized, with no motorization below that. This meant that fodder for the horses required more transports, and in case of cold weather, most horses would have to be withdrawn, so the heavy equipment could not be moved. The army received half of the available trucks, but this was far from enough. The average German infantry division had around 400 trucks and heavy movers, while the Hungarian light divisions had fewer than 30. Obviously, this was a major drawback, although the presence of trucks did not always alleviate the issue due to horrible road conditions in the Soviet Union, along with a lack of fuel. The army's anti-tank capabilities were low, to say the least. It received 244 37mm PaK-36 guns, along with almost 300 captured Belgian 47mm guns, which were also obsolete. Promises were made by the Germans to deliver more adequate guns. Of these, 77 50mm PaK-38 and 50 75mm French anti-tank guns were received later at the front. Even then, their crews lacked training, which created further problems when they encountered Soviet tanks. 158 men were sent to Wunsdorf for armor training. They had to train the rest of the Field Armored Division, which received 108 Panzer 38T and 22 Panzer Mark IV F1 tanks. 5,000 MP-40 submachine guns were also delivered, as the Hungarian army was just receiving its own SMGs, and it didn't have enough to properly equip the troops. Commander of Second Army was Lieutenant General Gustav Jány, a trusted confidant of Miklos Horthy, the regent. Horthy hoped that Jány would not bend to the will of his German superiors so easily, which was needed because his army was subordinated to Heeresgruppe Süd, so going around the Germans was not an option. In most cases, their orders had to be followed. This caused complications later on, when the situation worsened in the winter months. The officer corps was a mixture. Some regular army officers declined to participate, others looked for an excuse, so reservists and those who hoped for battlefield promotion took their place. Later on, these reservists proved to be a great addition, as they could communicate with and properly lead the men, who were mostly ordinary peasants. Transportation took several weeks. The first echelon left Hungary in mid-April, after having loaded on more than 200 trains. Third Corps and its troops detrained in Kursk and Orel, then marched up to 100 kilometers to arrive at their positions between German 2nd and 6th armies, although one light division was used in anti-partisan operations first. The second echelon with 4th Corps departed from Hungary at the end of May, using more than 300 trains. Some of these units had to march more than 1,000 kilometers to reach the line and participate in the fighting. The third wave, with 7th Corps, followed them in mid-June. They detrained at Kursk, but most of the armored division had to drive 2,000 kilometers to reach the front. By the end of July, all of 2nd Army's units were in their positions. By that time, Fall Blau resulted in a major Soviet retreat, so most of the Hungarian divisions arrived at the Don to defend the new lines. I will talk about the first major operations conducted by 2nd Army in the next episode, which will be followed by many others. See you in the next one!